You can all fuck off and die! Oh, this is not my intro. Wait. Okay, found it. Hey there, my name's Unique Nemosaurus, and welcome to my first top 10 list. Before you leave, let me just advertise the experience you're getting into. You can expect 50% criticizing my opinion and 50% questioning whether I'm sane or not. But I'm not insane, I can do top 10 lists too. I'm gonna stick a little disclaimer in before we start. First off, only one character per franchise. Shit's gonna get really old otherwise. Secondly, an antagonist is not the same as a villain. This is not a contest of who can be the most evil. However, if it was, I would win easily because I have clips from Elf and Lied and video editing software. Kick the dog! Shit, someone made fun of a dog dying that wasn't even real. Oh no! Thirdly, just like every other top 10 list you've seen, I need to insist that this is just my opinion, and everyone is entitled to their own personal subjective view on what's best. I can't do this. This is a top 10 list, and whether you like it or not, I don't believe everything in storytelling is so subjective that everything is just as good as everything else because it's all about the eye of the beholder. Of course, if you personally define the word good as what you personally like, then I guess it's completely subjective. In which case, for this video, heck my whole channel, I'ma define good as the elements of storytelling that are engaging to any unbiased human brain. Of course, there are always slight variations from person to person on what's good, even with this definition. Some people are gonna like certain elements more than others, but I don't think anyone is arguing that a shallow character is better than a deep one, and I doubt you're ever going to run into someone who hates something like character development. Oh, what? It's like, ring ring, the loony bin called, they want that— oh, never mind, it's about me again. Me and Mr. Fuzzy Nipples just want to live in peace, so leave us alone! Point is, I don't like playing this everybody wins game where we're not allowed to disagree with others or put forward concrete views on what is good and what is bad. This is literally a list of antagonists that I think make their stories better as wholes. Does that sound presumptuous? Damn right it does, but I'm here for the love of the medium and how it works. Making these bold statements about what's good and what's not opens up some amazing discussion that I treasure being a part of. Here's how it's gonna work. I'm gonna shout my opinion at you and use evidence and logic to justify why I think I'm right. If you disagree, I either didn't justify my points well enough, or I'm just plain wrong. Which, believe me, I'll admit to if it happens. As I say, I'm here for the love of the medium, and learning what works and what doesn't is more important to me than being right. Hell, check out my last SAO video for a good example of that. I was all like, this is bad, and a lot of people were like, what the fuck? And I was all like, a lot of people disagree. Maybe I'm the one who's biased? And then I took into account some other factors and was like, oh shit, whoops, I was wrong. Everyone was like, I'm glad you came around to our side, Unique Nemosaurus, you are forgiven. You fucking slut. No one actually called me a slut, I just like insulting myself. I have no idea why though. On a side note, I have the weirdest boner right now. Anyway, let's get things back on track. Welcome to the party, people. The entertainment's up top, the discussion's down below, and if you're looking for the punch, it's in the argument. Whether we're right or wrong, let's embrace it all. Here comes number 10. Number 10. Johann Liebert. Wait, your name is spelled with a J? That's dumb. The German language is dumb. Oh wait, we English speakers spell phonetic, the word for pronunciation, with a fucking PH. So here's the thing. Johann Liebert is the main antagonist from a relatively dated anime called Monster. Among the veteran anime community, he's most likely to be regarded as the greatest anime antagonist of all time. Yeah, as you can tell, I enjoy putting my back to a cross and stabbing nails into my hands. Before I get to why he's number 10 instead of number 1, let's talk about why he's on the list at all. To Johann's credit, he has amazing superficial features. And I don't mean superficial in a bad way. His outward personality is probably the creepiest and most sinister you will see on this list. He has a completely calm and innocent demeanor which contrasts everything evil he says and does. If you're familiar with the concept of the uncanny valley, then you'll know this guy hits that nail on the head. To add more to the chaotic brew, Johann— oh fuck this, I'm spelling it with a Y. As I was saying, to add to everything, Johann is intimidating. His manipulative nature and his presence in the plot make him an antagonist that's so significant, powerful, and dominating that he's almost terrifying. The issue with Johann, however, is his depth. Throughout the entirety of Monster, Johann's reasoning, his psychology, his motives, his plans, and just what he was thinking is really unclear and convoluted. For instance, his ultimate goal is never really made clear between kill everyone or something and something else called the ultimate suicide. Even then, though, he makes a lot of actions which straight up contradict his supposed end goal. You can't have your cake and eat it, Johann. Actually, no, you totally could. Who the fuck popularizes these fucking expressions? Stop sucking sliced bread's dick, it's not even that great! There are a lot of instances where I think I could have appreciated his character, and because of that the plot as a whole, if I just understood at the very least the basics of his character. For the record, a lot of the stuff with his backstory makes sense, and I understand what made him the character he is in the present, but the actions he makes as he moves around the plot tend to be very weird and confusing. A lot of the time I just wasn't clear on what he was doing or why. It's like, why are you here? Why are you there? Why are you surrounded by children? Why are you suddenly crying now? If you wanted, you could argue it as mystery, but there's no payoff to any of it, and in the end, I just give up on Monster's mystery being effective. I wish I could give some more specific examples, but I watched Monster half a year ago when I started playing this list, so my memory on specifics is a little foggy. I mean, I could watch it again, but that's like 70 episodes, so it'll probably take so long I'll forget stuff about other contenders on this list. But if you're still in doubt, go watch Monster again. I don't think it's hard to spot the problems with him. He's fantastically creepy and foreboding, but I'll be damned if I really understand the guy. I would say we're about to move on to number 9, but we're actually gonna go to number 8 and come back to 9 later. Seems weird, I know, but it's gonna make it easier for me to explain my reasoning, so just trust me on this. Okay, number 8 is so... I love this guy so much. I don't even know where to begin with this. Number 8 is Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, the 2011 one, not the old one. I haven't watched that. Similar to Johan, Hisoka is an antagonist with fantastic superficial features. He's easily the quirkiest and funniest antagonist on this list, and that's his selling point. I should probably add here that I think the superficial features of these characters are what tend to make them fan favorites, so if anyone is wondering why the 2 most popular antagonists are so high up, it's because the other antagonists service their show a lot more. These guys here don't add as much to the experience as a whole, but by god are they fun to watch as standalone characters. Hisoka has entertainment in spades. No, like actually because he uses cards. Knife a PowerPoint! Let me bash out the numbers on what gives Hisoka good superficial features. He's charming, he's funny, he's unique, and he's a pedophile. What? Yeah, he's a pedophile, and is played out as a constant joke and something unique about his character through the series, and I fucking love it! This guy is so weird and creepy that it makes him so goddamn hilarious. It's fantastic! See, now, unlike Johan, there's nothing confusing about Hisoka's character. There isn't all that much explained about Hisoka, and so his character isn't all that deep. But what he's explained is enough to be able to appreciate his character and understand his actions. Hisoka is simply one of those chaotic evil thrill seekers, and that's all he needs to function. And again, maybe he's close to chaotic neutral. Interestingly, there's one arc where Hisoka fights alongside the main characters, so then, question. Does that make him no longer an antagonist? Here's my answer. That's my answer. A lot of this countdown will have a lot of grey area, and that's one of the points we'll find it. It's really hard to debate. We could say that he's simply not an antagonist for that arc, but that just seems weird, because he's still the same character. It's not like the character logic has changed. I don't know. Even that sounds weird. Anyway, I'm just going to keep it simple and call him an antagonist through and through because he spends more time hindering the protagonist than helping him. Also, there's one other thing that makes Hisoka stand out. Hisoka has an element that I've never seen on another villain, and I've only ever seen once in another antagonist, who coincidentally is coming up next. That element is what I call humanizing, and it's basically consistent of characters disregarding the tense plot scenario and just being how they would be as a normal human being. Laughing, playing, and joking around, all great ways to achieve that. All the time do you see Hisoka breaking away from business to have a normal conversation or joke about something, and it adds so much more feeling to his character. Unlike so many other antagonists, Hisoka feels much more alive and real. Granted, most of the human side is shown in the Greed Island arc, the arc where he works partially by the protagonist's sides. Humanizing is something that's almost essential with protagonists, but no one does it with antagonists, and it's a shame because no matter what, all characters can profit from more feeling. And yes, I did use the word feeling to describe Hisoka. Father, get your mind out of the gutter. There's only room for one of us. Okay, now just before we move on, let me help out those of you who don't understand my point. Look, I can summarize Hisoka in a single word. Swing! Alright, I've had my say. Comment section's all yours, guys. Hope you're ready for number 7, though. Actually, tell you what, if someone guesses number 7, before I release the video, I'll reply to you and tell you you're right. The reason I say this, though, is because the next character is so ridiculously far out of left field that I know no one is gonna get it. Hey, I'll even give you a clue. The antagonist is easily the youngest on the list and is also the most innocent. Question, is getting you to guess the next antagonist a ploy to increase comment participation, thereby increasing the popularity of the video? My answer, God, why do I interrogate myself like this? Look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think of that while scripting this, but it's close to, hey, that's an added bonus, rather than that being the sole reason for its creation. That's, it's not really much better, but hey, at least I'm honest about it. What can I say? I like the idea of the channel growing, so I'm gonna do what marketing I can. In return, though, I promise to always level with you guys and be honest about everything. It's ironic, because being honest with your consumer is actually a PR technique, so my honesty is actually still dishonest. Oh yeah, while we're on the topic of marketing, if you honestly like the video, remember to like. A lot of people move on without doing anything, but if I can get everyone who passes through here to do something, like, the difference would be hilariously enormous. I really want to see that. I mean, I'm the creator, so obviously, but hey, you get the satisfaction out of it too. You get the immense satisfaction of making someone's day through a pure act of kindness. It will satisfy your body and soul. Too much bullshit. I'll be honest, you don't really get anything for liking the video. It's just a favor if you feel kind enough to do so. But I will appreciate it and be immensely thankful. That's about all I can offer. So yeah, thanks. To number 8. I'll try to get part 2 out in the next 2 weeks. but I can't promise anything. Until then, though, catch you later. Alright, number 7. You ready for this? God, why am I even asking that? I'm a video, I can hold conversation about as well as I can hold anything else. Whatever. The number 7 antagonist is... Oh god, I'm gonna get so much shit for this.
These are legendary Pokemon, Molly. And in this book, the artist imagined what some of them might look like.
Papa.
I'm like Entei, am I? Well, then I am Entei.
Molly Hale, from Pokemon Movie 3, Spell of the Unknown. To those of you who are wondering if you're dreaming or not, yeah, you are dreaming. Punch yourself, you'll wake up. Alright, give me a second to explain why a Pokemon character is on this list. First off, despite the fact it's Pokemon, the third movie is, well, it's actually surprisingly decent. Memorable characters and a rather strong emotional story. And I'm not being nostalgia blind here. I watched the second one and it was pretty damn good actually. I'm kidding, it was shit. I'm still kidding, my dick's stuck in the DVD. Molly represents to me probably the best example of a solid, fleshed out antagonist. The basics of her character is this. Her mother ran away from her father because he was a workaholic, and then at the start of the movie, Molly's father, an archaeologist, has an encounter with the unknown, which are like legendary Pokemon. And he disappears. Molly, now traumatized from neither having her mother or her father, ends up encountering the unknown herself, whom in all their legendary power and mystery start manifesting her subconscious desires into reality. Suddenly, there's a giant crystal palace and landscape in the middle of the town, she has a giant dog Pokemon to replace her father, and ends up getting the main character's mother kidnapped so she can have a replacement for her own mother. Basically, the whole movie is the effect of her being in denial of everything she's lost, and if that doesn't count as fantastic depth for a character, then god, I don't know what is. Not only is the psychology for this character ridiculously deep, but it's also dark as fuck. On top of all this, she develops as the movie goes on and she's forced to accept what's happened and all the things she's created aren't real, and it's genuinely pretty heartbreaking as you see these small changes in what she thinks as the movie goes on. The depth is easily stronger than Hisoka's, and despite the movie not straight up telling you what's going through Molly's head, it's presented in a way that makes it very easy to tell what she's thinking. So I understood her way better than Johan. In terms of superficial features, she's not as good as Johan or Hisoka, who both have very distinct personalities, but she's still pretty damn high up. She's a very cheerful and lovable character. Nothing original as far as personalities go, but she's still solid, especially if you want to count her uniqueness. I mean, you just do not see honest-to-god normal children as antagonists. But, I mean, just by itself, a sweet innocent little girl in the context of an antagonist is really interesting, and I think it gives her some strong superficial features. Of course, Johan's super creepiness and Hisoka's entertainment fact I think have a bigger impression on the audience than Molly's innocence or uniqueness. Also, before someone mentions it, yes, the 8-year-old is indeed directly after Hisoka. Coincidence? I really fucking hope so. Also, while I have a moment, let me just say, yes, Molly does count as an antagonist. By definition, an antagonist is just someone who opposes the protagonist. As I say, this is a list of antagonists, not villains. A character doesn't have to be evil to be on this list. Now, along with Molly's depth, the other major factor that has me putting Molly above everyone before on the list so far is the fact out of all the antagonists so far, she is easily the most humanized. Not even number 1 on this list feels more real and alive than Molly does. The movie even opens on a touching scene where Molly and her father are doing something as normal as reading a storybook together. On top of that, because she spends most of the movie in denial, it allows her to act like a normal kid. There are so many scenes where she's just having fun because she just wants to pretend that everything is okay, and it just helps to give her character so much more realism and feeling on top of the amazing depth. It's fucking fantastic, and I want to see it on more antagonists. Of course, I'm not saying humanizing is for every antagonist. You would ruin Johan's foreboding demeanor if you had him joking around or acting like a normal human. I mean, if you found a way to do it without ruining his superficial features, then good job, you've bettered his character, but fucking good luck with that, because that sounds pretty impossible. Racism. Okay, moving on. So this is the point where we go back to number 9, because I skipped it in part 1. So I could better explain here? Okay. Number 9.
So you want the gold back, huh? Because old man Cricket's your friend. Wake up! He's nothing but a decrepit fool who spends all his time chasing after a 400-year-old lie. But that's probably what you like about him, right? You like to call yourselves pirates, but you know nothing. There's no city of gold, no island in the sky, just oceans and ships and the men who sail them.
Bellamy from One Piece. Here's another interesting one. When people talk antagonists in One Piece, Bellamy is an antagonist that really comes up. But honestly, I think he's really underrated. I think it's probably because he's weak as fuck and therefore in a way isn't worth mentioning, but the fact he's weak is kind of the point. Bellamy is our first example of the concept of what I call a dick antagonist. And yes, I did just make my own professional terminology only to use a sexual organ in the name. Sophistication is my middle name. Liar is my last. What dick antagonist means is basically to make a character that we as an audience hate so much that it's super satisfying to watch that character have the crap beaten out of them. A lot of One Piece villains are fairly lackluster in terms of depth and don't really go past "I'm evil," and Bellamy isn't really an exception. But most of the antagonists in One Piece tend to be ones you love to hate, and they all have these satisfying high-impact conclusions to their characters. One of the reasons I put Bellamy here over other dick antagonists is because Bellamy is really unique in the kind of dick antagonist he is. Where most antagonists are just dicks to characters, Bellamy is a dick to something else. He's a dick to the entire theming of the anime. Now, if you know me, you'll know I don't like throwing around words like theming lightly. Maybe I'm just a Neanderthal incapable of any kind of deep understanding of a show's underlying principles, but I feel like the word theming is too often abused so that people can pretend that their favorite works are deeper than they actually are. Oh, Titanic is about theming of agoraphobia because it's set in wide open spaces. It's like, sea? Where else would it be set? Titanic in a house? Instant bestseller. But see, with One Piece, you know the theming isn't bullshit. It's super obvious. Mainly because they don't fucking shut up about it. We get it! You have friends! We all do! I have friends! I do! I have friends! I promise! Apart from the theming of friendship, One Piece also has the theme of dreams. Each crew member is emphasized to have their own dream, and our main character is constantly talking about his dream to become the Pirate King. And, you know, never giving up on it, blah blah blah, you get it. And then comes along Bellamy, a pirate who believes that the era of pirates dreaming is over. He looks down upon any pirate who does as naive and stupid and then proceeds to mock them. At this point, the series has been going for 150 episodes and you've been exposed to so much dreaming theming that it's hard not to get behind it. So when this guy appears, he's immediately an asshole. And when it finally comes to the moment where Luffy gets to kick his ass, boom! One punch and he's out. And by God is it satisfying. It takes a character we hate and makes them eat their words at full force. When I say it's kind of part of the point that he's weak, I say this because in a way, being completely dominated just rubs it in his face how wrong he is in both strength and ideals. Also he's being humiliated, which adds more to the satisfaction of the scene. Of course, Bellamy has nothing other than this. His beliefs give him a bit of personality, but other than that, he's pretty much a typical copy-paste bad guy with one really high-impact moment thanks to his elements of dickery. You might be tempted to switch this guy out with another dick antagonist from One Piece. Arlong and Crocodile are also pretty good dicks, but their arcs are drawn out. Bellamy is a short, sweet 6 episodes, so his percentage of good moments to screen time is much higher. Also, on reflection, the other antagonists in One Piece tend to kind of oppose One Piece's theming of friendship, but it's definitely not as solid and as clear as Bellamy. No one really says fuck friendship, but Bellamy is definitely saying fuck dreams. Now let's talk about why he's number 9. Firstly, he's behind Hisoka because while Bellamy has a high impact moment, Hisoka has great superficial features and some humanization. On top of this, there's a slight problem with Bellamy's arc that kind of takes away from his character. In one of his first episodes, he gets annoyed with the main characters for their beliefs and starts beating the shit out of them. Luffy and co don't fight back though. Don't get me wrong, this is a great way of building up hate for this character. He looks so fucking smug while he's doing it, even though you know Luffy can beat the shit out of him. My problem arises in the reason behind not fighting. The reason given is that some fights aren't worth fighting, and it's like, it kinda works. It's a little bit unbelievable though, just a little bit. Cause it's like, you are being seriously injured by this. The phrase "some fights aren't worth fighting" might justify walking away, but it isn't enough to justify standing there and taking it. It works when your character feels guilty or is trying to protect a principle, but it just doesn't quite work here, and it kind of throws me off for the arc and takes away from Bellamy's spotlight a bit because the arc as a whole just doesn't feel as concise. Anyway, that's why he's behind Hisoka. As for being in front of Johan, this gets tricky. Johan has a significant downside just as Bellamy does, but they also have a significant upside. Bellamy's high impact moment and Johan's superficial features. But since they've got nothing else as strong as those two things, I can't compare how many strengths Bellamy has to Johan and make a judgment based on that, which is how I usually do this in order to get a fair comparison. So basically, this is the point where I compare incomparables, which is dumb for obvious reasons. So then, which is better, high impact moments or superficial features? Going upon what I said in my Death Note vs Code Geass video and my Attack on Titan vs Sword Online video, I feel like high impact moments are better because they, well, take you to a new height. That's about all I have to go on though. You could very easily argue this the other way around and ugh. Either way, I'm just gonna settle with this logic and stick Bellamy as number 9. But it's very much up for debate. Can you kinda see how number 9 got held back? It's because I was struggling for fucking ever to place this guy and I kept changing my mind and fucking hell, a script got screwed over because I was already written and See, verses are a lot easier for me to make because there's a lot less in terms of incomparables. In fact, I can choose the two anime I'm comparing, so they tend to have a lot of things I can compare. But with this, oh, there are so many more elements to compare and so many more motherfucking incomparables, it's hard. Oh my god, it's hard. Fuck this. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this. If you're gonna do a top 10 list, don't do a top 10 list. Alright, on to part 3 and number 6 of the countdown. No promises, but this might actually be out next week. These have been surprisingly easy to produce. So yeah, I'll see you there. Ciao.
Admit it. You have no...
I also considered Sakura as an antagonist, but I suppose it only really works if they're an enemy to the main characters instead of just a me. Ultimately, I decided on Neji, because he combines a lot of the elements I've been talking about. First off, God, he hurt anyone, and destroys her both mentally and physically with no sign of remorse. Of course, there's a perfect reasoning for him to be like this. He's the side branch of a clan and suffers all the downsides of it. Simply because of this, Neji lost his father, and his life is constantly under threat from the pretty crayon drawing on his head, and seeing him finally be beaten to a pulp is one of the most satisfying moments in the series. On top of how much you hate him, he's a really fleshed out and three-dimensional character. But what really puts him above other characters on the list is something I've practically only seen Naruto villains pull off. And I simply call this thing parallels. See, a lot of the time, antagonists tend to be written more like obstacles, something for the character just to succeed over, but in Naruto, the story and characters acknowledge the similarities between protagonist and antagonist. In the case of Neji, parallels are drawn between how they both get the wrong end of the stick in life, their views on destiny, and all sorts of fantastic stuff to do with the beliefs at the very heart of their characters. It both leads into character and relationship development for the both of them as they change their views based on what they've experienced in the fight with each other. Character parallels. Recognize. By the way, as for other antagonists in Naruto, By the way, as for other antagonists in Naruto, Gaara was a very close contender, but kinda broke the creepy Johan feeling he had that would have set him apart when he turned into this. Pain was also quite a close contender as well, that's it. Oh yeah, one last thing. Sasuke was also a really close contender. For a large part of the anime, he does become an antagonist, and he becomes a really interesting one at that. There are very few good examples of characters starting out as protagonists and turning into antagonists. Ultimately though, he got really fucking confusing in Shippuden. Like, that wasn't just me, right? All the logic around his choices was really warped and weird. Maybe the point was that he was confused, but that was never properly acknowledged, so it felt more like Kishimoto wanted to create certain situations, but just didn't quite have the proper reasoning to get there. Oh well. Anyway, I'm a little busy right now, so I'm gonna keep one character to a part and probably bring these things out every 2 weeks. In a month or two, I'll have some more time to myself, and we'll have more regular uploads though. Until next time.
Please, don't.
I didn't know you could still be afraid of dying after becoming a god.
Number 5. Shogo Makishima, Psychopaths. Oh hey look, Unique Nemesaurus actually watches classy shit too, who would have guessed? Makishima's interesting. To start, he's the first instance of a character design being finalized even though the concept artist decided that the best way to make a well-complemented and vibrant character was to use the color bleach. At this point in the list, depth is downright essential, and Shogo Makishima delivers. In a city in the future governed by an AI called the Sybil system, citizens are scanned to analyze their mind to determine everything from the job they're best suited to even whether or not they'll become a criminal if they're not locked up. Psychopath's lore is fairly large, so I'ma just summarize it like that and tell you that Shogo Makishima is a man who resents this new society and believes that humans are only humans when they make their own choices, which is something that the Sybil system restricts greatly. Now if that wasn't great depth and understandable motivation already, it gets better. As the series goes on, it's theorized that Makishima's hate and bitterness towards the system really just stems from being one of the few people who, for whatever reason, can't be read by the Sybil system and will always be read as a normal, healthy citizen no matter what unspeakable acts they commit. To Shogo Makishima as a child, it was like the system didn't even acknowledge him as human. It's fucking great, and it justifies why he's such an asshat too. I mean, if most people didn't like the government, they'd probably just protest, with signs. Makishima, on the other hand, slits throats and masterminds massive riots that bring the city to its knees. Close enough, right? Did I mention he's a good dick? You know, the more and more I use that term, the more I realize how stupid it is. Yeah, okay, the moment I'm forced to use the phrase, I like good dicks, we're changing it. Anyway, a whole episode is dedicated to killing one of the main character's friends in a brutal mind game, and it's pretty solid in execution. Would have helped if I gave two shits about the character, rather than all my hate towards Makishima being based wholly on how traumatic of an experience he put Akame through, but whatever. Someone gets a knife waved around their throat and gunshots around them before finally having their neck slit open, and all I have to say is whatever. I should reconsider that job in childcare. But hey, that's not all. Makishima sports some really strong superficial features. He's somewhat of a philosopher, and his knowledge of classic writing and poetry, and his own findings, means he's constantly commenting on the world, himself, and other characters with quotes and philosophical principles. It makes him really distinctive as a character. And everything he says has logic to it too. He's a philosopher, but it's not in the butt plug shaped like your own head kind of way. Apart from the distinctive philosophy side, he's downright intimidating and foreboding too. From his lines to his actions, he's just a huge badass for the series. And while I do hate him to some degree for the things he does, I can't help but respect him at the exact same time. He's just so powerful and frightening. You just get the impression he couldn't be stopped by anything. Helmets are against the rules, they don't count. They're too smart. Yeah, so here's something interesting with these characters with strong superficial features. If you go for a character that's designed to be powerful and foreboding, that's great, and it adds worlds to their impression on the audience. At the same time, though, having them put in a situation where they're basically beaten in any way, it takes away from the respect and fear you have for the character. It's a small point, but when you have a character who's badass and foreboding, and then have them unceremoniously whacked over the head by a helmet to beat them, kinda takes away from the character. It's small, but as we get closer and closer to number 1, the small points make a big difference. In fact, Makishima and the next 2 on the list are basically at the exact same levels. You have no idea how hard it was to choose between these guys. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know the things I've done. I've had to think. I've had to think. I'm a survivor of helmets. Okay, I'm done talking about how the great Makishima was beaten by a helmet. I shall refrain from rubbing it in. He doesn't have the interesting character parallels Neji has. Well, they try to pretend there are character parallels between him and Kogami with the whole they looked into each other's eyes and immediately knew each other and found a connection, but no, there wasn't really anything solid and clear that they shared as people. But, as an all-round antagonist, I'd say Shogo beats those before him. Shogo beats Neji in distinctiveness. His superficial features really carry him as an antagonist that really sticks in people's minds. There are also solid reasons to hate him and feel intimidated by him, and he has a lot of great depth that makes his character interesting. Actually, I should probably add that one downside to Neji was that his superficial features might have been a bit below par. He's kind of bland in the way that you only really see one side of him while he's an antagonist. He always has the same bitter, cold personality about him, but with Makishima we get to see him calm, happy, cheerful, serious, melancholy. Makishima feels a lot more fleshed out and real. Maybe multiple sides of personality is also a way of humanizing characters? Perhaps it's just to a lesser extent anyway? I don't know, I'm still kind of working on that theory. Anyway, to sum up, a much more real-feeling character combined with some really strong superficial features is what puts Makishima above Neji. Or, below? Fucking, I don't know, I dropped a MS, dude, leave me alone. Also, before we end, can we just note that the 5th greatest antagonist of all anime has a mullet? My body rejects this. I'll see you in the next video. To number 4. Medusa, Soul Eater. First off, let me do some damage control here. I understand Makishima is probably the much more popular villain over Medusa, so I'ma just justify that before the rating on this video turns into a lightsaber. It's not red anymore. Oh, YouTube, you have gone too far this time. Medusa is a powerful witch who's one of the main antagonists in Soul Eater. In terms of motivation, well, she believes in science, which is all the motivation you need to be evil. What I'm saying is that as a scientist, she believes in the idea that because of ethics, the evolution of science has been stuck in stasis. It's short, it's simple, it's solid. Welcome aboard the SSS, I don't know why I scripted this. It's not as complicated as Makishima, but I'm not sure if that necessarily makes Makishima deeper. Then again, Makishima wins points for explaining exactly why he has the motivation in the first place, so points to Maki-Poo on that one. Oh, that is so how I'm referring to all serial killers from now on. Medusa is also ridiculously smart and manipulative, and as the story goes on, she ends up using her smarts to control even the struggles between other characters so that she can profit from them. I mean, Makishima was smart, but it was never shown to the same degree as Medusa. Although Medusa isn't as distinctive, she's got a somewhat generically evil, sly personality to her, so superficial features are about equal. On the flip side though, Medusa is easily the bigger dick. You get really attached to a character named Krona as the story goes on, and okay, so for the record, this character is never given a fucking gender for no apparent reason, so I'ma just call Krona a she, because, you know, I'm all about that gender equality. You sluts. So Krona actually starts off as an antagonist, but basically only because of Medusa. Her own fucking mother forced her into that position. Our main character Maka befriends and helps her, and you really become invested in little Krona. Now, Medusa, motherfucking Medusa, tortures this girl, abuses her role as mother to make her betray her friends. Literally the only reason she had a child was for her own experiments. Holy shit. This character is fucking heartless, you've just got to resent her. Hell, somewhere along the line in the story, she actually steals and possesses a little girl's body. Hey, I see you there. Second last thing about Medusa. Do you remember when I talked about Molly and said she was the only humanized character? I lied. I also lied about ever saying that sentence, actually, but whatever. My counter-argument is shut up. Anyway, Soul Eater wasn't afraid to treat Medusa like a human. There are a lot of scenes where you really get to see what Medusa is like away from a master plan, and there's one amazing scene in particular where she takes part in the comic relief, and I love it. She just feels so much more like a real human being. Hell, she even seems capable of love to some extent. Of course, with all this stuff, it would seem like by my own logic, Medusa is the better villain, right? Well, unfortunately, she has a pretty underwhelming conclusion. Ever heard of the phrase Chekhov's gun? I know it really only applies to things, like props, but it's the same core reason. Medusa is built up as super smart with a huge master plan, but it just doesn't come to fruition. She just kinda dies. I'm sure it's probably different in the manga, but the anime, meh. Now, one last thing. I've used quite a few of my own. Medusa has one of these. There's one scene where she just shows up to the DWMA, which is sort of like the main place of Soul Eater, where she knows she'll get detained from just being there, and she just straight up surrenders with a huge smirk on her face because it's all part of her master plan. It's good. And, I mean, like, Makishima has a couple of small ones too. For example, that scene I used at the beginning of the last video, and also the scene where you find out that the Dominators can't be used on him. Anyway, my point is that really... Oh yeah, on a total side note, damn, look at that body. My editor better play the right clips for that.
Mira. 信じられない。こんな人が本当にフェアリーテイルに不思議なの。
時は満ちた。ジジイ、俺はあんたを超える。どっちも俺のフェアリーテイルにはいらない。マスターチよ。今は敵でも同じギルドの魔導士俺の命令が聞かねえのか。おやつのためじゃねえ。俺の命令があるために、一人の男であるためにだ。くだらねえな。こんな人格で俺をどうにかできるとでも思ったかミスターマン。フェアリーテイルは大したことはねえ。くだらねえ。フェアリーテイル、俺が目指すのはこんなんじゃねえ。我慢の限界だ。フェアリーテイルは俺がいただく。
Number 3, Loxus. Oh my god, I finally get to talk about Fairy Tail. God, do you know how many great antagonists there are in the Fairy Tail universe? Almost all of both the main antagonists and the side antagonists have depth and are usually easy to hate. And the best part is, they're almost always introduced with a connection to something else already established. So you're always immediately more interested to learn about them than, I don't know, cliched shonen bad guy number 065. For example, Leon was trained under the same master as one of the main characters, Gudgiel is the second Dragon Slayer you learn about, the entirety of the Orochi and Seius group as children were involved in the same horrifying incident as one of the main characters. I could literally do this with practically every single antagonist in multiple ways, but probably the best example of this is Loxus, who's already an established character before he even becomes an antagonist. Anyway, I know some people are gonna light me up for even breathing the air that was at some point used to make the sound fairy tale, but honestly, to me, calling Loxus a bad antagonist just because he comes from an anime with a reputation like Fairy Tail sounds really stupid. Like, do you want to know how stupid I think that is? Put Loxus in bunny ears. That's how stupid. Not to say Fairy Tail is a bad anime. No, I fucking love Fairy Tail. I put my dick in Fairy Tail. Don't ask me how that works. But damn, I don't care what you say. I'm giving credit where credit is due. So then, why is Loxus more deserving in place number 3 more than anyone else? Loxus is debatably the strongest wizard from the Guild Fairy Tail. He's also the grandson of the Guild's Master Makro. For the first couple of arcs of Fairy Tail, he appears and disappears, and for the most part he only appears only for the sake of being a giant fucking penis. In a guild that basically embodies community and camaraderie, Loxus is easily the odd one out. In the Phantom Lord arc, the whole guild is in serious trouble, and when Mirajane, who by the way is the sweetest, most lovable goddamn character ever, calls Loxus and begs him to help, he laughs at her, makes her cry, and tells them to clean up their own mess. There are a couple of other scenes of this dickery, but this one was the highlight. In terms of personality, I'd say he's pretty damn distinctive. He's basically one part punk, one part arrogance, and like 10 parts bitch fit adolescent. This is something I really like about Loxus. His personality blends so nicely into his depth. It makes perfect sense as to why he acts the way he does. Loxus, while easily one of the strongest wizards in Fairy Tail, still grew up under his grandfather's shadow. his achievements weren't equated to him. They were blamed on being the grandson of the guildmaster. Mix this with the fact that his father had to be kicked out of the guild for endangering members, and you have a very nice concoction for a very angry adolescent who just wants to find his place in the world. Among other things, this leads him to try and take over the guild by force, because he believes that if he is the guildmaster, he will finally get the respect he thinks he deserves. How awesome is that for depth and personality design? If you thought it was interesting to give a child incredible power, just imagine what it's like to give that to a teenager. He's even got the whole angry adolescent character design going on. What with the lightning theming, and the headphones. Wonder what he even listens to on those headphones. Aside from being deep, distinctive, asshole-ish, hugely powerful, and useful in power shortages, Luxus has two amazing moments that round off his character. Woo! No one is harmed. The idea is that fairy law only harms those who you believe are truly enemies. If fairy law didn't hurt anyone, it means that deep down, past all the anger and aggression, but hey, you know what? We're not even done yet, because there's a second high-impact moment for Luxus. After everything is said and done, Luxus, like his father, has to be kicked, as he puts it. They're forced to kick him out, but they leave him a token of goodwill. In the Fantasia Parade, the event that the arc was originally leading up to, treat Luxus with kindness, and Luxus cries. It's in this moment he finally regrets his action and appreciates the kindness and love they've always given him.
You humans don't make any sense to me. You throw away your lives for nothing.
What's up, fuckbuckets? Envy. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Envy is one of the many good antagonists from FMA. He's a man-made being and an immortal one at that. Well, immortal until the world's greatest scientists gather together and discover the genius method of just eradicate subject until subject is no more. So at first glance, Envy isn't that special. His immediate personality is solid. He's sinister and manipulative with a hint of childlike impulsiveness, and it's that playful element that makes him much more distinctive.
Lucky me!
But then, where's his depth? You really don't see that much into his character apart from the fact he looks down on humans. He loathes them and despises them, and most importantly thinks they're inferior. But for almost his entire run, Envy has no depth. Envy is one of the homunculi in FMA who are based off the 7 deadly sins. And I really hate this kind of character design, because if you base a character off a single emotion or a theme, they become really hard to make human or three-dimensional. Suddenly all the actions a character makes are based off a single concept, and they're almost incapable of growth, rational thought, or real feeling. By forcing a character to stay true to something by their biology or soul, you kinda write them into a corner. That's kinda abstract, but you see what I mean, right? This sort of thing especially pisses me off when people write their characters to be evil itself. It's like, oh, that's so grand and dramatic, what a mature character you've written. Put him in the Hall of Fame for deep villains with Bowser and Maleficent. Fuck you, man. Fuck you, you grimy little self-absorbed low-life Of course, that's not to say that an antagonist without depth can't be good. Hisoka's personality alone was engaging enough to earn him a spot on this list. Anyway, I know, Envy really does have depth. You just have to, shut the fuck up. Try to think here. Duh. So aside from high-impact moments, Envy's biggest strength is how huge of a dick he is. I feel 100% confident in saying he is the biggest dick character in anime of all time. And man, you know from a good 6 videos how much I like big dicks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Maze Hughes. So, Maze Hughes, personality-wise, is fantastic. He's this hilarious, excitable family man who comes across as super moral and fatherly and kind, and everyone loves him. Everyone looks at this character and goes, I love this guy. I look at this character and go, someone should kill this guy. And with a smile on his face, that's just what Envy does. In order to create as much hate to Envy as possible, Maze Hughes was easily the best character to kill. Hell, to rub salt in the wound, before Envy kills him, he transforms, that's a thing he can do by the way, into Hughes' wife. It's so perfect because family is more relevant and clearly more dear to this character than anyone else's. It's this perfect setup that leads into Envy's first high-impact moment. Near the end of the series, Roy Mustang, who was Hughes' colleague and closest friend, finds Envy and asks him if he murdered Hughes. When Envy proves he did, all hell breaks loose. This was not a fight. This was closer to taking candy from a baby and then drop-kicking said baby into the street. Envy is destroyed, he gets blown up over and over, he tries to fight back but every attack fails and every new strategy he comes up with is proven futile immediately. He's completely at Mustang's mercy. For the whole fight he's humiliated and tortured and never given a single shred of hope that the tables might turn. It's total annihilation and it's beautiful. This is easily the most satisfying conclusion to any hateable character ever. Hell, I haven't even watched all of this scene. I keep getting halfway through and my dick knocks the desk over. So that's one high impact moment, but there's one more. So some stuff happens, and after that, Envy is finally reduced to his weaker form and is confronted by Edward. That's the main character, by the way. Envy, in his snake-like ways, tries to manipulate everyone into fighting each other based on old grudges, and of course it doesn't work. And it's at that point that Edward realizes something. Envy is jealous of humans. Remember how much I said he talks about being superior to humans, how he looks down on them? As it turns out, he's the complete opposite. As a homunculi, Envy is jealous of humans for their emotions and their bonds and their kindness. Suddenly, he's not Envy because that's just what he was made to be. He is Envy because of an actual rational reason, and suddenly he has depth, and a lot of it. Envy proceeds to cry, devastated and humiliated by the secret of his feelings being revealed, before he finally chooses to remove his own Philosopher's Stone, the thing that gives him life. The reveal of his secret, the irony of said secret, the sudden introduction of depth into his character, the development of his character as he cries before choosing to take his own life, these are the reasons this is a high-impact moment, and these are the reasons he is what I believe to be the second greatest antagonist in history. And on that note, I will see you in the next video. Alright, who's ready? Let's go! I'm gonna put these into categories, starting with exceptions that didn't fit anywhere. Toby, from Naruto Shippuden. So from all the theories and analysis I built up over the years, the logic really pointed to Toby being a good antagonist, but when his character was finally concluded in the manga, he actually didn't really strike a chord with me. This doesn't really mean I was wrong about him though. The thing you gotta remember about Naruto Shippuden is it's long and rolling. I don't even remember half the shit that happened in Shippuden. And I feel like I missed a lot of the context on this character. If I watched or read all of Shippuden in one go, I think I'd appreciate him a lot more, but just put another O on this word for every episode of Shippuden. I can't practically do an analysis on Toby, so I'm afraid all he gets is an honorable mention. Next exception is Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. Abridged. The f***? So here's the thing, I don't believe the original Frieza deserves a place on this list. He's a fairly hateable character, but that's about all he is. Nostalgia plays a big part here. I just think when people talk about Frieza, they skip pulling the wool over their eyes and just go straight to duct taping a sheep to their face. Frieza Abridged, on the other hand? Maybe it's sacrilege to say, but he's straight up an improvement on the original. He's got so much more of a distinctive personality in this somewhat posh, stuck-up evil guy. And holy shit, does he become entertaining as hell. He becomes both hugely funny and at the same time really intimidating, with some writing that's just a fucking godsend.
Going to.
Oh, no, don't mind me. By all means, give me some ideas.
But alas, as much as I tried, I couldn't justify a parody of an anime as an actual anime, so I left him behind. But still, honorable mention. Don't worry, I promise this is the only stupid one. Next, Joffrey Baratheon, Game of Thrones. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, out of the exceptions and into the individual categories. First category, popular picks that I didn't think deserved a place. Number 1, Frieza, obviously. Number 2, Berserk spoilers coming up, you have been warned. It's Griffith, everybody. Look, I love this anime, and I love Griffith even more, but as an antagonist, Griffith is nothing. He's like an antagonist for one episode. There's no real explanation, no real conclusion to his character. So, like, trainer antagonists make for some really good antagonists, or because, like, their development into becoming an antagonist can be really strong character development, and also they play the part in a very powerful plot twist. But the one episode Griffith got actually being an antagonist was just not enough. I'm sorry. Number 3, Light Yagami. Okay, breathe in, breathe out. Light Yagami is not an antagonist. He can't be. The story starts with him, the story centers around him. By all logic, he is the main character. By definition, that makes him a protagonist. The reason everyone feels that Light is an antagonist or even a villain is because of his morals in the beginning of the series, and especially at the end of the series. At the start, it's just very questionable, and your view of his character can depend a lot on perspective. But it's okay, there's a name for that sort of thing. Instead of an antagonist, Light is much closer to what you would call an anti-hero. Of course, at the end of the series, there's nothing questionable about his morals anymore. He loses all redeeming features and becomes downright hateable. But you know what? He's still a protagonist, because the story still focuses on him, and he is still the main character. He's just a really bad one. But Unique Namosaurus, in Death Note vs. Code Geass, you said something different. Yeah, I know, I was wrong. I was using some really weird definitions in that video, apparently. I've since changed my views since then. But Unique Namosaurus, in the preview to this video series, you put Kira's laugh. I'm sorry. It just sounded so perfect there. I fucked up, okay? I totally forgot about the conclusions that I came to. Or maybe it was while I was in the middle of forming those conclusions. I actually don't remember. Anyway, so one more question you probably want answered. If an antagonist is someone who opposes the protagonist, and the protagonist is Light Yagami, then doesn't that mean that L should be on this list? Next category, the whoops I forgot about you category. Number 1, L from Death Note. So yeah, at the time, I never even considered putting L on this list. I need to go watch Death Note again before I form an opinion on if he deserved a place or not. And when that happens, I'll come back with a follow-up video, so until then. Number 2, spoilers for Code Geass. Number 2 in this category is Suzaku, yet again another character I did not consider. I'm assuming I never considered Suzaku and L because their morality is rather uncommon in an antagonist. Anyway, just like L, I'll be doing a follow-up video sometime in the future. Finally, number 3. Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya spoilers. Oh, what a sin I have committed, Yuki Nagato. How could I forget you, you beautiful, beautiful character, you. You can expect a follow-up video on this one too. Next category, the true honorable mentions. Antagonists worth mentioning, but they didn't do quite enough. 1. Madoka Magica spoilers. Number 1 is Kyubey. Kyubey? Yeah. Very cool concept and motive, nothing much else though, than the fact he was barely human was kind of a hindrance on his depth. Number 2, the anti-spirals. Gurren Lagann. Cool concept, cool motive, nothing much else though. Number 3, Attack on Titan spoilers. Number 3 is Annie from Attack on Titan. She's a lot like Griffith. Trainer antagonists are cool because plot twist, but I need more than that. She needed a proper explanation, more depth, and perhaps a stronger personality. And yeah, I know, I'm going off the first season of Attack on Titan. Sorry, but I can't analyze what I haven't seen. As of right now, in the anime, she isn't good enough. That same logic goes for Griffith too, by the way. Number 3, Nui, Kill la Kill. Hateable and a fairly strong personality. Gonna need more than that though. She lacked depth and was kinda just evil for the sake of being evil. Number 4, Lazaruso, Baccano. This one just barely scraped number 10 for me. Amazing, entertaining personality. Not much in terms of depth, but that personality alone almost rivaled Hisoka. Almost. What, I like my pedophile? Whoa, gonna stop that sentence. Number 5, Legato Blue Summers, Trigun. Okay, this one deserves a little extra screen time. So you know how Makishima and Johan both have this element to their personality and their actions that makes them both badass and foreboding? These antagonists are straight up intimidating because they're always portrayed as such powerful characters. It's because of that, though, that if they ever lose or are humiliated, especially before the actual end of the series, they lose this fearful side to their character. It seems to be an anticlimax of sorts. Legato Blue Summers gets a special mention because he solves this issue completely. He has this powerful badass element to him like Makishima and Johan, but he's never truly defeated. I'm not going to go into it here, but Legato Blue Summers is finally defeated because by being defeated by the main character, it means the main character will suffer immensely. It's straight up part of his plan to be defeated, and because of that, his character is concluded without anyone ever getting the better of him. Go watch Trigun if you want to understand what I mean by all of that. It's well worth it. In fact, Trigun is one of my 2 90s animes that I actually think stand up to today's standards. Apart from Parasite? I mean, does Parasite count? I don't know. Anyway, this design choice for Legato was no short of genius. However, Legato didn't make the list because apart from this one point, he's incredibly generic. In the anime, he has no real depth, no real motives, he doesn't really do much to be hateable, and he has no solid or distinct personality, so yeah. Alright, next category. The franchise was too good category. Antagonists probably would have made it on the list if it wasn't for the one character per franchise rule. Number 1, Itachi from Naruto. So I was a bit skeptical about Itachi. He's a good dick with good motives and depth and a great twist, but when I watched the series originally, I remember being quite confused with some elements of his character that didn't really add up. What were those elements? I don't remember. Same issue with Toby. Itachi is across so many episodes that I can't possibly review him. Sorry, Itachi fans. Number 2, Hunter x Hunter spoilers. Number 2 is Meruem. So, the amazing thing about Meruem is he's an antagonist that's set up to be inherently evil and bad, but then he has serious and powerful developments as he grows to be actually 3-dimensional. This is both good and bad. The good thing is that it tricks you into thinking he's boring, only to give him super strong developments later on. The bad thing is that it tricks you into thinking he's boring. Look, I know, I get it, that's the point. But whether it's the point or not, it doesn't change the fact that I was still bored out of my fucking mind for 50% of this character's screen time. This might honestly be perspective though, because it all depends on if you personally thought the boring part was worth it for the plot twist. And that's something I can't very easily objectively analyze. Either way, for me personally, his character made for some of the best scenes in the arc, but also some of the worst, and that brought this character down a lot. To me, Hisoka was just the more reasonable choice. Anyway, number 3, a shit ton of fairy tale characters. Number 4, a shit ton of Brotherhood characters with particular mention to Bradley. As I said in one of the comments, Bradley was a close contender with Envy. Bradley was the deeper character and even had some elements of the badass traits that I was talking about before. But Envy had the super powerful high impact moments, and that was what had me put Bradley below. Okay, last category, the goddammit category. The antagonist that would have made the list if I hadn't already planned out the goddamn list before I watched the goddamn series that said goddamn antagonists were goddamn from. Number 1, Reiko Tamura, Parasite. Sorry, I was having too much fun. Number 1, Reiko Tamura, Parasite. She was a bit boring personality-wise, but it had some seriously strong developments. Number 2, Beerus, Dragon Ball Z, Battle of the Gods. Holy shit, I was genuinely surprised by this guy. He had a very fun, distinctive, and entertaining personality, and if I recall, he wasn't just plain evil, he had some proper motives other than just being the god of destruction. I think. I don't remember too well. Again though, another character that might have taken number 10. Number 3. And finally, a shit ton of Akame ga Kill characters. Holy shit, I was so impressed by this anime. Need to do a whole video on this shit, but I think the thing that impressed me most was the antagonists. There were a bunch of super generic side antagonists, but those were never really the focus. The real antagonists? Man, they all had distinctiveness and depth, and they were all so human with their own reasonable motives. It was fucking brilliant. I say Seryu was probably my favorite, but hey, more on that in another video. Anyway, that's it for honorable mentions. Woo! You guys ready for the next part? Thanks for your input, Chair. It's finally time, everybody. Time for the grand reveal. Everything comes down to this. The finale is probably pissing you off already. I'll get on with it. Oh, before I do start though, I should mention, I have a blind date I'm going to. Her name is Controversy, and I have this sneaking suspicion that she's gonna be really ugly.
I am the solution.
Number 1. Amon, The Legend of Korra. Okay, so, first order of business. Damage control. I'm yet to actually do a video on defining anime. When I do, I'm actually going to go the opposite to popular belief. But this isn't that video. Right now, the only thing I'm concerned with arguing is the idea that when we talk anime, something like Korra shouldn't be excluded just because it's not Japanese. I mean, look at this show. Put this in front of anyone who doesn't know any better, and Korra will likely be defined by them as anime. The only thing that really separates it from something that you would see as anime is something that's not even part of the content, the fact that it's not from Japan. If you changed nothing about Korra, but instead made it in Japan, no one would blink an eye. Just humor me for a second. Say Amon really is better than all the other antagonists. Doesn't it seem really unfair to kick him off the list purely for the single reason that his creators aren't Japanese and nothing else? I'm sorry, I have the principle of giving credit where credit is due. If I think an antagonist is this close to being called an anime antagonist, then I can't just ignore that. Besides, by dictionary definition, I am completely wrong. I can admit that. But is that definition really the one we use? Have you ever said you watch anime, that you like anime? Hell, I bet for some of you, 90% of what you watch is anime. I know that's the case for me anyway. In that context, does this definition really make sense? The sentence "I love anime" literally translates to "I love animation created by the Japanese." Does that mean you like this medium because it's Japanese? Of course not. That'd be kind of racist, really. People clearly gravitate to this subgroup of animation for an entirely different reason than because Japan. And shouldn't that reason, whatever it is, be the actual defining feature? It's not like I made this channel specifically for animation made in Japan anyway, but it just seems like I have, because anime most commonly fits the type of thing I want to talk about. This list is just called Top 10 Anime Antagonists because any other title would sound really stupid. Look, I ain't really here to change definitions or say you're wrong. That kind of argument gets dumb fast. If you want to go by dictionary definition, then you win. Congratulations. I just want the people that preach the dictionary definition and completely naysay anything that doesn't follow it to acknowledge that there has to be a reason why so many people think Korra feels like anime, despite being strictly not Japanese. And also acknowledge that a lot of people treat anime more like a genre than anything else. People don't gravitate to this medium because it's Japanese. That would be dumb. There's clearly something else that connects anime together into a group of entertainment. Anyway, I'll do a bigger video on this later. Oh, and if you're still not happy with my reasoning, I got one more thing for you. You know that weird-ass text in every one of the titles on this video series? It's a type of encryption called a Caesar shift. If you decrypt this with a key of 3, you get the title Top 10 Anime plus Korra Antagonists. What, you think I'd just ruin a surprise this good by not pulling a stunt like that? Anyway, now that that's over and I've hopefully averted a halfway dislike bar, let's talk about Amon. Amon is a masked villain from the Avatar universe. In a world where some people are naturally given the ability to bend the elements, a large number of the non-bending population feel like they are mistreated and oppressed by their bending counterparts. Enter Amon, leader of the movement that is in rebellion of bending. Which is a little bit of a weird situation. Nothing quite says trust me with leadership like a guy in a mask. Amon's personality is easily his weakest feature. What, you thought number 1 was going to be perfection? Credit where credit is due, man. Anyway, Amon isn't too distinctive. He's fairly much generic, confident, mysterious badass, and I kinda understand why this was done. It synergizes a lot with his other superficial features. However, Makishima had a fantastic personality and still kept up the badass trait well, so it's not like it's impossible. But enough about his initial personality. Amon does so well with his other superficial features. You know how we talked briefly about the badass trait with Makishima, Johan, and Legato Blue Summers? Well, Amon has near perfect execution of this. Throughout the series, he is the dominating force. When he fights, he breaks his enemies without a sweat. Not that you could tell. Amon takes on freaking benders and then just defeats them with hand-to-hand combat anyway. On top of this, Amon is downright terrifying. His presence in the story has a huge effect on the characters. A whole episode was dedicated to how scared the Avatar, the main fucking character, was of him. Even on a mental level, he has every other character beat. He's always one step ahead. When the Avatar makes a ruckus in one of his movement events, he just lets her go free. He takes the opportunity to make just a messenger out of her. You really only need to look at the clips of this character to get what I mean. Just fucking look at this guy. Oh, and the best part about Amon's badassery? There are no anticlimactic defeats that break the atmosphere around him before the end of the series. The creators really seem to understand this. Everything is done to avoid demeaning his character. Hell, when the main characters need to break into the Equalist base for plot reasons, Amon is just coincidentally out on business at the time. This means that the fuck up is on the Equalist part, and it's not associated with Amon at all. And then when Amon tells his subordinates to do something with the Avatar, the show makes a point out of the fact that Amon specifically warns them not to underestimate her. So when she outsmarts his subordinates, the blame isn't on Amon. It's fucking genius! Legato Blue Summers probably had the best conclusion to this kind of antagonist, and while Amon doesn't achieve that, I think he had a much more badass run in the time beforehand. And his conclusion was still really well handled anyway. In the last episode, he's bested only by a couple of moments, and is finally defeated only by something super hard to predict. But for the most part of the final fight with him, it's played out like a horror. The characters are terrified of him, and the focus of the fight is more about trying to escape from him. Even when he is bested, he fucking gets away! One last thing on his superficial features. Here's something we haven't talked about before. Mystery. The mystery surrounding who Amon is was so fucking amazingly handled. Amon starts out with crazy mystery surrounding himself as he's shown to have the power to take people's bending away, and it only gets crazier as you keep going. One of the 2 high-impact moments involves this. So, bloodbending is known as one of the world's most powerful forms of bending. You find out that the character Tarlok is a prodigy bloodbender, and someone to be very scared of, as he can control you like a puppet. But there's a scene where Amon just shows up out of freaking nowhere. He tends to do that a lot, actually. One of the things I love about him. Especially when the whole episode has been dedicated to some dumbass sports event, he just shows up like, "Sup, motherfuckers, Blood's here." Anyway, he just shows up and walks towards Tarlok, intending to take his bending away. Of course, Tarlok tries to bloodbend him, but Amon, motherfucking Amon, just walks through it. This blew my mind the first time I watched it. I came so hard they had to issue a flood warning. I legit started to think Amon wasn't even human. This scene, man, both hugely badass and an emphasizer to one of the strongest mystery plot lines I've ever seen. Everyone was just dying to know just who or what this guy was when it aired. Anyway, that's the superficial features and one high impact moment down. Let's talk depth. First off, fantastic intricate motive. Even at the start when his character is a mystery, he's an antagonist who debatably fights for moral reasons. Hell, it's almost tempting to side with him on. I mean, can we just talk about how the main character is less moral than him? Also, you brought an animal that's half polar bear to a warm climate. What the fuck is wrong with you? Through Amon's campaign, you begin to understand what he values as a person, and what he values says so much about him as both a human and an antagonist. And once the mask is removed, God, you gain so much more depth to this character. You find out that Amon is Talak's brother, and son to one of the city's criminal masterminds. This criminal mastermind escaped the city after having his powerful bloodbending removed by the original Avatar. He escaped to the Water Tribe where he had his 2 kids. He filled the 2 kids' heads with his failed dreams to take over Republic City and cruelly forced them into training their waterbending and bloodbending until Noatork, a prodigy among bloodbending prodigies, ran away, eventually to assume the new identity of Amon. I just filled you in on the plot there, but just trust me, the actual thing is so much more sadder and emotional than what I make it out to be here. Anyway, one of the best things I think about Avatar is its villains. Not just because of their personalities and initial depths and motives though. Avatar does this fantastic thing where they show you how the characters gain the personality traits they have through real psychology and upbringing. Ty Lee is a bubbly, excitable attention seeker because she wanted to separate herself from her like 6 other identical twins or something. Mai is completely reserved because she grew up being suppressed into silence by her family's desire to look good as they were involved in politics. Amon is no exception, of course. His relationship with his father caused him to both hate the idea of bending, become cold and detached as he was forced to toy with real living beings, and even though he undoubtedly hated his father, the story acknowledges that his father's ideals still shaped and influenced his 2 sons. As much as the 2 brothers hated him, they still drifted towards the idea of taking over Republic City, just as their father tried to do, even if it was in their own way. As much as they hated their father, in the back of their mind they still wanted his admiration and respect, just like real children. Random side note, this was the only thing that bothered me about Azula's depth from the original series. The episode The Beach tried to give us some insight into how Azula became who she is, but she effectively said my own mother thought I was a monster. But it never really gave us any insight onto why she became a monster as a kid in the first place. I think the intention was that Azula took after her father while Zuko took after his mother, but that was never said or implied. Anyway, I think Amon's depth is right up there with Makishima as the highest on the list. So Amon has perfect and fully realized depth and amazing superficial features with both the dominating trait and the hugely powerful mystery trait, which we haven't really seen on the list yet. But what else does he do? Well, he's a little hateable for one. He takes the bending away from a couple of notable characters. It wasn't anything close to Envy's killing a beloved character, but it was kind of close. Man, people were pissed when Amon took Lin Beifong's bending. Anything else? Well, just like the last 2 on the list, he has 2 high-impact moments. We've already talked about one when I talked about the mystery element. But the other comes at the very end, the conclusion to his arc. After all his plans come crashing down, he releases his brother from his prison, stating that he is all he has left in this world and he wants to start over. Tarlok takes him up on his offer and they head out to sea. But Tarlok, mortified by the actions the 2 of them have taken, decides to put an end to this sad story and blows up the boat. Not only is this scene hugely shocking, but what makes it one of the most amazing scenes is that just before Tarlok blows the boat up behind his brother's back, you see a tear fall from Noatork's eye. Without a word to the audience, Corey insinuated that through his bloodbending, Noatork could sense what Tarlok was doing and did nothing to stop it. At the very end, Noatork accepts his brother's actions and agrees to commit group suicide. This would be the perfect time to crack a joke. I'm not gonna crack a joke. Jesus Christ. Between this and his backstory, most people really started to care for this guy. Now, you might be particularly wondering how this guy beat Envy. So this is debatable. I think Amon just has a lot of extra stuff that Envy doesn't have. If I were to sum it up, Envy has a decent personality, super strong depth, is super hateable, and has 2 really high impact moments. But Amon has perfect execution of the badass trait, super powerful mystery, 2 high impact moments, and fantastically strong depth that explains how his life as a child even shaped the things he did in the future. I mean, not even Envy has that last one, even though his depth is super strong. Because, like, we're told that he's envious because he's a homunculi, but I mean, so were the other 7 deadly sins. Why didn't they share his envious trait? Honestly, I might have given Envy a bit too much credit. The scene where his depth is explained is a little more vague and flawed than I made it out to be. It was really good, but it would be a lie to say that I came out of it without a couple of questions. But I think Envy did have the most powerful high impact moment in the entire list when he went up against Mustang. Honestly, I think these two are pretty close, and if I tweak my reasoning a little bit, I could switch them around. But do you really want that? Like, come on, I had like 4 minutes worth of content for Envy. Do you really want that for number 1? Or do you prefer me dropping a controversy bombshell for number 1 and surprising everybody? Because I know what I'd choose. I love to keep everyone on their toes, you know? If I'm gonna make a top 10 list, then I want to make it unique. And if I have to do some serious extra legwork in explaining myself to try and avoid a 50% dislike ratio, then so be it. It's part of the fun of it. Because the other option is that I just pick Envy and then everyone just agrees with me because it's gonna be the far more openly accepted choice. Yeah, that's just not my style. I'll be real, some of the characters on this list do 1 or 2 things better than Amon. Johan does creepy better than Amon, for instance. Envy is a higher impact moment than Amon. Neji is more hateable than Amon. Medusa is smaller than Amon. But for every trait the other characters excel at, they have a trait they either don't have or just bomb at. Amon doesn't have this. His character is made up of so many jacks and kings in different trades, and even an ace in character depth, high impact moments, and superficial features. He has some creepiness of Johan, badassery of Makishima, some smarts of Medusa, some hateability of Neji, high impact moments of Luxus and Envy, and it's all combined in a character whose depth is perfectly fleshed out and explained all the way down to how his upbringing made him the way he is. And that is the reason I believe that Amon is the greatest antagonist in straight up any medium. For now, anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Unique Namosaurus and I will openly put forth any controversial opinion as long as I have reason to believe it. When it comes to putting forward a new idea, there is nothing I fear and nothing that you can do to deter me. Please don't unsubscribe from me.